Good evening, everyone. We again have a very special guest to interview this evening. He's someone that has had a long history with Huntley, and he's also one of our local businessmen. I'd like to introduce to you Arthur Kahl. However, I think pretty much everyone in the room knows him much better as Hoppy. And Hoppy, before we get started with the straight interview,
Sure.
I know you wanted to say a few words or give us some background about your father, who you said led a very interesting life and was part of the Huntley program.
Well, he's much more interesting than I am, I believe. But he was born February 3rd, 1915, down at Stark's Corner.
Okay.
And before the end of February, they moved to Huntley, which was known as the Mankey Farm, that Mr. Borelli bought. And now there's a 7-Eleven, the fire barn, and that's on that property there. So my family's been here close to 100 years. Obviously in 2015 it will be 100 years.
Now, was your family, your grandfather and father, farmers?
My grandfather was a farmer. He farmed that property there, and they had 11 kids that they raised there on the farm. Mostly girls with 3 boys. I had to work hard, of course. And my grandfather, during the tough times, had done anything he could, of course, to make money. He started, I think, in the 30s hauling cattle in the Chicago stockyards. And then in the 40s, my dad took the business over, which meant buying a truck from him. That was it. And he hauled the cattle in Chicago stockyards, and he would haul feed back out to Huntley for farmers, lime for their barn and whatever.
So it wasn't strictly a farm life for him?
No. He had done a lot of farming, of course, as a kid. As a young man, then he took his dad's business over, my grandfather's, and started hauling cattle in Chicago stockyards.
And what was your dad's name?
Arthur Kahl.
Oh, same
Yeah,
as yours.
same.
Okay.
That's probably why I have a nickname.
And your mother's name?
It was Lucille Bakley. She was a baker.
Okay, so
And there's some bakeries around here too.
yeah, but she wasn't originally from this area.
No.
She came in.
Her family moved here in 1936. Her dad traded property in South Dakota for property just off of Kreitzer Road. They moved here in 1936. And 36 was a lot of snow, and it was a mile-long dirt lane, and some of the equipment he couldn't get back there until spring, till later in the spring. So they started out kind of tough too. And if you think where Kreitzer Road is, and back in the field, and then where my dad grew up, they were almost neighbors.
Oh, okay.
Because it was just kind of across a few fields, across 47, they were neighbors.
So they knew the Kreitzer family. And
yeah, they knew the Kreitzer family, but the Bakeleys and the Kahls were actually neighbors after 1936.
And your dad was also involved with a business here in Huntley?
Well, he had a few businesses. When he got done with the hauling cattle in Chicago stockyards, he sold that business to Norm Zimmerman and Roy Dietrich, which ended up being D&Z Transfer. They took that over. And then my dad and his brother started a business, sand and gravel and excavating. And they had that business. After just a few years, my dad bought him out, and so he had that business. Hauling gravel, mostly for farmers, graveling lanes and doing whatever they needed to do. But he also had, I thought, an interesting job, because we grew up a site of Union Special when it was quite busy. And they had a big coal furnace. The coal would come in on rail to Marlowe's feed mill that is gone, and he would load it on his trucks and haul it to Union Special, which was only a few hundred feet, but you couldn't drive that way. You had to go out on 47 and down Borden Street and
swing around.
So that's one of his jobs in the wintertime, besides plowing snow for Union Special and various things like that.
So he was doing a little of everything.
So he had done that after the hauling the cattle, yeah. And then he had back problems, and in the 50s he sold that business to D&Z, so they got in that kind of business also. And then he had the garbage business. I grew up throwing garbage cans every Saturday morning. We had 2 loads. We took care of the whole town of Huntley, all the residents in Huntley on Saturday morning. During the week, he would take care of gas stations, restaurants, and any other business that needed his service.
And there was a place, the American Club, is that what it was called? Or?
I forgot what I called it.
You've got your-
Little America.
Little America.
Little America, yeah. I'm sure Tom remembers a little bit about Little America.
I had no.
Yeah, and I just
knowledge
have
of that,
all I have here is it was a little card, and it just says this is a free ticket. It's not good for anything, but it's free. That's from Little America.
And what exactly was Little America?
It was a little tavern is what it
Little
was,
tavern.
yeah, and I don't even know if it almost looked like a rail car of some type that they made in a little tavern.
And that was on 47?
That was right on 47, just south of the Harris Bank.
And your dad owned that?
No,
or
my dad,
did not?
no, the only connection I had with that, they used to, you could go in there and you could have all the peanuts you wanted as long as you threw the shells on the floor. Well, after they were about 6 or 8 inches deep, the fire department was kind of worried about that. So my dad, being in the garbage business, we had the job of cleaning it out. We went in there with scoop shovels and we hauled 2 or 3 loads of that out, of crushed up peanut shells.
Must have had a lot of squirrels waiting outside for that.
There must have been, yeah. But it was a little interesting because if anybody was to drop any coins, they were lost. So my dad built a screen on some blocks, and he would burn load it at a time, and he ended up with about $60 worth of coins for it and stuff. So
He did do a little bit of
He
everything.
did a little bit of everything, yes he did.
And this is from about 1960s?
I think it's from the 60s probably, and I don't know for sure, there's not a date on
We'll
that.
pass this around. It's just a little memorabilia thing from that place.
It was just a small business. We had many more taverns than they had churches back then.
And how long did your dad live?
He died about 5 years ago. He was 92 years old when he died, so he did
Very
pretty
good.
well, yeah.
Good. Well, that's good. Very good. That was very interesting.
Well, thank you.
And also now, if we maybe can start with you and see what
With
you're
me?
about. And Hoppy, where were you born?
Well, I grew up right here in Huntley. Actually, I was born in Elgin in a hospital, but I grew up entirely in Huntley. The home house was right aside of Union Special, right back of what is now Powell's Car Wash. It was a big yellow house. My dad had 2 lots there. He had a big garage where he kept the trucks, mostly gravel trucks, and then later on the garbage trucks.
That house is still there?
The house is still there.
The house is
yeah.
still there.
Mhm.
And you obviously then weren't born into, again, farming family. It was
No, when I
town,
when I was
dad's
born
business.
in 1950, my dad was in the sand and gravel business at the time. I remember a little bit about that. He sold that in about 1958 or 59, so I don't remember a lot about that. I remember a lot about garbage cans. So that was my.
So, and you were
all
born
through
in
school.
1950?
In 1950, yes.
Okay, and brothers and sisters?
I've got 3 older sisters and a younger brother. Mhm.
Okay. And did you went to school then, I
Went to
presume,
school
in Huntley?
Totally in Huntley, yeah.
And,
Mhm.
you went
right
through-
across the street, 1st grade through 11th grade. I was, and my class was the first one to graduate out of this building here in 1968.
Did you go to
High school.
the high school and grammar school together?
They were
or was
all in one building.
They were all in one
They were
building?
all in one building. Mhm.
And that's
It was right on Lincoln Street.
obviously, we don't see too much of that anymore, but
Mhm.
what was your feeling about that education that you got in the Huntley schools?
I thought I got, I thought they did a fine job.
It was a good education.
Yeah, I thought so.
Good teachers?
Yeah, it was small then. I had 36 in my class, so in high school, it wasn't 180 kids in whole high school, I think.
And I presume you
So,
knew all of them?
I knew everybody, and the good thing was if you wanted to play sports, you had a warm body, you got to play sports. But there was no girls' sports back then.
Yeah.
No, it was either football, basketball, and track, and that's all we had in high school.
And what kind of things did you do when you were, say, 7, 8, 10 years old, that you could tell us about? Just for fun things, I mean.
Just
what
for
did the- what
fun.
the
Well,
boys and
obviously,
girls
we
do?
always got the guys got together and played baseball or football, something like that, of course, in summertime and fall. Most of the kids around town, of course, they had bikes, but a lot of them had a small motorcycle or a go-kart, something like that. We did that. A lot of times we went out to the farms because I had so many relatives around and help on the farms, might be baling hay in the summertime and tractor work, whatever, so it's just
Did you
kinda
guys all
normal.
mix well too with the farm kids, or
Yeah.
were you pretty much a separate?
I would say when I was in high school, about half of us lived in town, another half lived in the country, so it was quite a mix. Mhm.
And then in high school, you also, did you play any sports in high school?
Yeah, I played football and basketball,
Football and basketball.
for Huntley High School.
And what did you do, first of all, with fun, you might say, but I'm sure there were dances and things like that.
Yeah, they had the sock hops and the homecoming and the prom, that kind of thing. But yeah, the big thing was after a basketball or football game, especially Friday night, is go out somewhere for pizza. There was nothing in town. We usually went to Union or Dundee, something like that, pizza place.
And were there a lot of work to do for you? I mean, when you were in high school, did you
Yes.
did you have a job or did?
Yes, and many jobs. Yeah, we had a drugstore in town. I was probably 10, 11 years old, and I was folding newspapers, Sunday newspapers there. I worked at the John Deere store, used to be in town. That's where the motorcycle place used to be. I worked there. Of course, my dad kept me busy with his businesses. Yeah, any kid could get a job. We had different factories that could allow kids to work even when they were 16, 17, depending on what they did. But
how did you get around at that time? Did everybody kind of have a car or truck or anything like that to get
Yeah,
around?
almost everybody had a car or a truck. All the high school kids did, sure. And probably when you was 14 or 15, you were driving around town if you needed to. We needed to because we always had some animals outside of town, and we were allowed, probably not legally, but we were allowed to drive car or the truck or
And kind of
something.
as a job.
Yeah, it was part of the family business. So
Now,
sure.
did you work also on farms at that time, or do
I
some
would
farm
help,
work? Or?
I would help uncles out when they needed help, baling hay, or if they were combining the oats or something like that. So a little bit of everything.
And what happened at the end of high school? Did you go on to college, or did you stay?
No, my dad still needed some help.
Okay.
So I knew I wasn't college material, so I went to Rockford Barber College 2 weeks after I was out of high school. Finished that and started working right away in 1969 as a barber.
Okay, and I have to ask you a quick question.
Sure.
We all know you as Hoppy,
Mhm.
so you've got to tell us how that came about.
Well, my dad had a tendency to nickname almost everybody. He nicknamed all 5 of us kids. Mine was because in about 1950, Hopalong Cassidy was one of the few things on television. It was his favorite cowboy, favorite cowboy. And I was probably 3, 4 years old, watch it with him and pretend I was Hoppy, and he'd just start calling me Hoppy. And it stuck,
It
yeah.
stuck.
And it stuck, yeah.
And you went to Barber College. Did you, at that point, I assume you went to work in Huntley when you were through at Barber?
No, the first job I had was in Carpentersville. It was a
Carpentersville.
large shop, it was a 6-chair shop. I worked there a few years, and then I owned a different shop in Carpentersville through the 70s. I worked just a few years in Algonquin for a man, and I opened up in 1981 here in Holly.
So your shop was from 1981?
Yeah, so it's 31 years now.
And being born and raised in at that time, a small town, Huntley, did you ever think about getting into the big city and getting involved in different things in the city? Or
No, I knew I wanted to stay around.
You wanted to
Huntley,
stay in?
Yeah, my dream was to have a shop in Huntley, which did happen.
And you're married, Hoppy?
Yeah, I'm married.
When did you meet your
Huntley
girl?
girl? Yeah.
When did you
Her
meet
last
her?
name was Eisenhart. Met her while she was in high school. I was just out of high school. And we got married in 1974. Had 2
And
boys.
her name
is Pam Eisenhart was her maiden name.
And you have children, you
I
said?
have 2 boys, yeah. I kind of have 2 families.
Uh-oh.
I have 2 boys. They're in their 30s, 37 and 34. And then later on, we had twin girls, and they just turned 18, and they just started college. So today was their first day of class.
That is 2 families.
Yeah, it was 2 families, yeah.
And your wife, did she work and do things along with you, or was
She
a
always supported me in my
homebody?
business. She does my book work, financing and stuff. So a little bit there is for a barber shop, but we always thought it was important for one of the parents to be home and for the kids and that when they get off the bus and whatever. And she was always involved in the kids, but she does work part-time at TLC, which is at the Trinity Church. She works part-time now.
And your boys and the 2 girls were were they schooled in Huntley too?
Yeah,
Through the
yeah,
Huntley school
yeah,
system?
they were all
Of
went
course, the
through the whole
newer one
school.
now, I'm
Yep,
sure.
they all
not
went
the
through
same.
they all went through the Huntley school system.
Good.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think, Hoppy, that you had a few things too you wanted to show us, or a couple of things at least?
I do have some pictures here of my dad. One of the things when he was hauling cattle in the Chicago stockyards, he bought a piece of property here in town. It was right by the tracks, and they had a barn and a small stockade, and he was going to keep some of the cattle there before he moved them in Chicago. He didn't get to use it much at all, and Dean's Milk Company wanted to come in town, and they wanted that property. So he sold them the property, and they moved that barn out to what is now Harold Bohart's farm. Unfortunately, July 3rd, it got burnt down. Now, I was pretty sad about that. But I do have some pictures of them moving that barn from here by the tracks out
Maybe
there.
we
So.
can pass those around
Sure.
too.
Absolutely.
See that. Come over to you. And I'll go back a little ways, Hoppy, when you were a bit younger. What were the holidays like in Huntley or your home, the Thanksgivings and the Christmas and the Easter?
They were more, I thought, festive then. They were more family-oriented then, I believe. Huntley school system, the grade school, had a large, and you can't call it a Christmas program now, but that's what it was.
Sure.
Yeah, and every student in the grade school was involved in it, either singing or playing in a band or something like that. And I thought that was very important, and it was more of a community thing, because
Right.
the town was 807 people when I was a teenager, and that many kids in the school, that just drew everybody in.
There's
And
a
it
lot
was
of
community.
interaction.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you know, that's,
Mhm.
those, like you said,
So the
that's
holidays
a
were
little bit
quite
different.
important, I thought. You know,
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, Easter, they were all quite festive and a lot of family get-together. My mother's side had a lot of family, and so did my dad, so we always had large get-togethers. Mhm.
Anything wild and crazy happen in the last 20 or 30 years? Fires, explosions, anything in Huntley you could tell us about?
I just remember when Powder Park, there was a company down there that was making fireworks, and they had an explosion down there. I think it was the first year I was cutting hair, and we thought we could hear it or feel the concussion in Carpentersville, and I think that was 1969. And I think a couple of our firemen got hurt, nobody got killed, but that was a big explosion. There had been some tornadoes, nothing hit Huntley, but on the edge of Huntley. I remember some barns being moved and taken down at different times in the 70s, I believe. Other than that, no, I can't remember anything too bad. I think we've been very fortunate here in Huntley.
I also want to ask you, there, because you've seen both sides of it, but in about 1999, something came into Huntley called Sun City.
Mhm, mhm.
And of course, that seemed like it changed Huntley in all different ways.
Sure did.
Now, you, of course, come from a little different background,
Mhm.
800 people.
Mhm.
What was your feeling about that? Were you happy to see that, or?
Well, I expected...
Maybe a little mixture of
I
things, or-
expected something like that, maybe not Del Webb, but the growth, because at the same time as Del Webb, there was growth to the east and the northeast also, a lot of growth. You know, within a few years, it was quite an explosion, I thought. I always thought it would happen, because I felt we were halfway between Chicago and Rockford with the tollway system so close. And I always just figured something like this or similar to this would happen. It happened faster than I thought, and I thought the most strain was on our school system with the elder growth, not the Del Webb, but and of course then we had the traffic and everything else. But I always saw it as a positive thing.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering if you
Mhm.
think, I mean, that's a big change
Yeah,
for
it
a town
is.
like Huntley, which
It is.
for a long time was
Mhm.
pretty much a small town.
Oh, yeah, it definitely was. And like I said before, half of my classmates lived in town, and the other half out in the country. There's not much country left
No,
anymore,
that's
you know.
for sure.
Of course, the whole farming thing has changed tremendously, too. Mhm.
Well, I think I'll ask the audience if there's any questions anyone would like to ask Hoppy. There's one here.
Hoppy, why don't you talk a little bit about your announcing of the football games and
Oh.
how you got into that, and you've been doing that for years and years. And
Well, a few of the things I'm involved in, of course, I've been involved in Lions Club for a long time too. I'm very proud of Lions Club. They do a lot of things for people, and I have a list of things that's incredible. I didn't realize how many things he did. One of the things being involved with Lions Club, for a while we didn't have a youth baseball team for the boys between Little League and high school, and I was involved with that with Lions Club. We got that going again. One of my things I enjoyed more was rebuilding the Boy Scout cabin in Dikey Park. The park district, I went to them and it was falling down, nobody could use it. They said, we're going to tear it down. I said, well, what if I got the help to rebuild it? They says, if you can get the help and you can get the money, we might let you do it. And I said, well, I don't have the money. I checked it to put a small log cabin together, it was about $10,000. We didn't have that much money, so I got looking it over, and a lot of the logs in there were used utility poles and some logs. So they were starting to take utility poles down from 47. Del Webb and things are coming in. This was about the mid-90s. And I talked to someone, and they said they'd give us as many poles as we wanted. And I got a bunch of volunteers, Lions Club, and then I just put an ad in a little Huntley paper every week, and whoever could help on a Sunday morning show up. And we started in May, and August 7th we got done with it, and we rebuilt the thing for less than $3,000. Donations. We had a pancake breakfast and things like that. And I was very proud of all the help that guys just came out of the woodwork. They maybe didn't know what side of a hammer to use, but they were there to help.
They were willing.
They were willing, yeah. And we made it out of utility poles. We saved 4 of the original logs that are in there. And I can point them out. They're hard to tell, but and we built it exactly the way it was constructed before. We copied everything. And the only thing is different is the roof is a little stronger than it used to be. So hopefully they'll keep that
for a long
time. Nancy said something about I volunteer at the high school football games. I announce the high school varsity games. I was helping part of the deal when...
Sounds like you've been doing this for a little bit of time?
I'm in my 24th year right now, so
It's a little bit
of time. I figured they can't find anybody any cheaper and more reliable, so I probably got the job. And when I got the young baseball team going, I didn't have enough money for umpires, and a couple guys from the town said they would help me. They would take care of that. At the end of the season, I said, I don't have any money to pay. I don't know what to do. They said, you got boys going to be in high school playing football. Come up and help us in the booth, be a spotter for the football. And I said, yeah, I can do that. That'd be great. The second year I was there, the guy that announces didn't show up. I don't know what happened, and there was nobody else up there. The varsity coach was doing the first game. At halftime, he says, here's the mic. I got to go get my football team ready.
Good luck to you.
And it was absolutely terrible. Absolutely. And the only thing that saved me was my neighbor was taping the games, and I listened to how bad I was, and I just tried to improve from there. So, and it's worked out. So, yeah. And I enjoy it. I enjoy the kids and the enthusiasm and energy, and we just have a good time.
Well, that's a great run.
Yeah.
That's a great run.
Yeah.
Hoppy, are you a grandfather at this point?
I am, yeah. I have a grandson just turned 4 years old. My oldest son and his wife, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, are there any other questions before we... Well, I'd certainly like to thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Letting us know a little bit about those things that happened in your life. We really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
On Little America, Ferris owns the house at the end of Woodstock Street.
Mm-hmm.
And his son was real interested in Admiral Byrd. And that building that the tavern was made out of was a prefab building that came from Goshen, Indiana, that was a duplicate of the ones that Admiral Byrd took to the Antarctic. That's why the tavern's called Little America.
Little America.
That's why the Penguin was up there, and they
Yeah.
had a low-frequency wire to replicate the low-frequency radio
Yeah,
that
there's a big
Bird had.
penguin out there.
And that tavern has survived. It's on the other side of Route 23 if you go out, oh God, Harmony Blacktop and keep going.
It's on Church Street.
Which one is it?
Church. And when you cross over 23, it's on Church, on the right-hand side.
Church, yeah, we've been out there and looked at it. It's still there. It just-
On the other side of 23.
Yeah, the guy's making homemade brew, so he's got a barrel for a mailbox.
And it's on Church Street, or Church Road out there, other side of,
Is
really?
it church?
Church.
You can see it from the road?
Is that the one you
yeah.
showed
Oh,
us
it's
pictures
back.
of last year, you
Okay,
brought?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of set farther back.
okay. Well, I didn't know it survived. That's cool. Well, do you remember all the business cards on the ceiling?
Oh, yeah.
Anybody came in and they take a thumbtack and stick the business card up there. And you could tell the old ones, because they were pretty well smoked
Yeah.
up, and you could tell a new one. But almost the whole ceiling was covered with business cards. It was just I don't know, an interesting place. Yeah.
Yeah.
All the peanut shells.
Peanuts on the floor and the paper on the ceiling and the cigarette smoke.
Yeah.
Shit all gone up, but it didn't.
And a bunch of drunks.
Yeah, Mercer and I were there on closing night. Oh, God, it was like.
Somehow